Let's do the minutes for the last meeting. I don't know if everyone's had a chance to take a look at them. If they are, if we've got a motion.
I make a motion to accept the minutes of the February 25th, 2021 meeting.
So we've got a motion by Chris. Do we have a second?
Second.
I got a second from Julie. I'll take a roll call. So Chris Benica,
Yes.
Doug Lapp,
Yes.
Jill Maroney,
Yes.
Ashley Cutter,
Yes.
Christine Flaherty,
Yes.
Alan Cron,
Yes.
Emily Davidson,
Yes.
Tim Haynes,
Yes.
Mark Shawm, if not, and myself, yes. So minutes are approved.
Mr. Chairman, I will abstain. Jared Valenzola, abstain.
Yeah, you weren't here at the last meeting. That's why I didn't call on you.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if I had to announce or not. Thank you.
No.
Or I wasn't sure if I was just missing like I usually am from these things.
So I only called on the ones that were actually here to vote on it. So, so the next is review of the bids, and I'm going to turn this over to SMA and to PMA to kind of go over this. If everyone has noticed, we do have town council as part of the meeting today, and as we go along, you'll see why. It's an important, extremely important meeting today. As they go through this, I would suggest take notes. There's going to be a lot of time for questions and answers. We want to make sure that everyone has all the information that they need. Any questions that they have, we want to make sure that we answer. And the goal at the end of the meeting tonight is to hopefully award the bid to a general contractor. All right.
Rich, I shared my screen. Everybody can see it, correct?
Yes.
Yep, I see
At
it.
least I can. Yeah.
Okay, great.
All right, so Mitch, I think the next one shows the bids.
Yep, we're on slide number 3, review the bids.
Is there a slide that shows the actual bids? I don't know if I put it
Yeah,
there or
we
not.
have a general, Sean, we have a
Okay.
general contractors breakdown. We had 3 bidders, 9 pre-qualified bidders. It's similar to what we reviewed last time.
Yeah, so just as a reminder to everybody, at the last meeting, we did show you what the bids were, and we did note that there were some questions surrounding the bids, so we needed to take some time to review them. And so CTA was the low bid, Rate was number 2, and J&J Contractors was number 3. CTA submitted their bid, and then during the review period, we were provided with information from multiple sources stating that CTA may have left some legal proceedings off of their Dchem update statement. We were also provided with information that Brate had an incorrect bond, which we reviewed and we saw that. So when things like that happen, we do our due diligence, we review it, and then at this point we brought in John Clifford from their town council to also review the bids and to advise the district on the legalities of whether or not they can accept the bid, whether they have to reject the bid, whose bid can be accepted, who needs to be rejected. So as part of the attachments that we sent in the email, we sent a copy of a letter that we sent to CTA regarding their legal proceedings we found missing. We included their response. We also included a memo to Rich Penny. This was also sent to Doug Lapp from CTA, about their bid. They asked us to share that with the committee, so we did that. We included a memo from the architect SMMA with their review of the bids, and we also included a memo from town council about their review of the bid. So I think at this point, it probably makes sense, Rich, to turn it over to John to have him go through his review, and then we can turn it over to Lorraine, have her talk about her review, and then maybe open up to some questions for either John, Lorraine, or for PMA.
Sounds good. John, you want to?
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We were made aware of some potential issues that complicated the bid process last week. Chris Kenny from my office and I both reviewed a lot of the documents that were provided to us. But the essential question for the committee are the bidders or the bidder you select, is that bidder a responsible bidder under Chapter 149? And we went through an analysis. The primary issue with CTA was that there were a number of issues of litigation that were omitted from the submission to the committee. The question is whether those omissions constitute a material omission that would impact your decision with regard to awarding the bid to the low bidder, CTA. And the legal standard in this case is a statement, fact, or omission is determined to be material if it hides information that would or could affect an awarding authority's selection of a general contractor. And the omission of a lawsuit specifically has been held in prior case law to be a material omission. So if the committee determines that it is, it agrees with our opinion that it is a material omission, you are within your rights to determine that the contractor is not a responsible bidder under the law, and you can pass over the low bid in this case. So that is really the analysis. Under the law, you really have a great deal of latitude to accept or reject a bidder in this situation. Recent case law involving the town of Hanover actually said that you have complete discretion whether to do it or not. But what's important to understand with regard to the CTA bid was that there were a number of cases, ongoing litigation that was omitted from the submitted bid package that came to our attention after the material was submitted to you as part of the bidding process. In addition to that, the Brate brothers, so the Brate builders, filed a bid, and there was an issue that came to light almost immediately with their bid. As part of their required bid submission, they did submit a bid bond, but Brate builders bid bond did actually cite the wrong town. And apparently we're going through this process in Rockland pretty much simultaneously with the town of Easton. The bid bond incorrectly identified Easton as the party that should be obligated under the bond. They did correct that almost immediately. Under Chapter 149, the committee has the ability to accept or reject a bid under these circumstances, but it is our opinion that this particular issue would be considered a scrivener's error or a clerical error that was corrected almost immediately after it was brought to the attention of the builder. So the committee, again, has wide latitude to select a builder under these situations, under either of these cases, but we would definitely consider the omission of litigation under the CTA submission as material to your consideration. Happy to answer any questions.
John, thank you. So if anyone has any questions on this, please, and don't be afraid to ask any question, because again, this is very important. So please ask any that you may have.
Question. I have a question. So it sounds like the brothers one, or whatever the name is, I can't remember at the moment. Sounds like it was just a clerical error, which is no problem. Well, not a problem, but not a big deal compared to litigation issues with the other contractor. So would you recommend, or the committee recommend, skipping over them and not having them be a part of the process?
Which one are you referring to, Emily?
Mr. Chairman, my suggestion is that we actually hear from Lorraine before the committee makes a decision
Okay.
one way or the
Yep.
other.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yep.
Mr.
No, this is
Chairman,
just if there was, yeah. Yep.
no, I was just going to dovetail off of Ms. Harrison. While I agree that a Scrivener's error is small, that is a careless error as well to make in a bid, especially bidding on something as large and expensive as this project. So I wouldn't, while it may seem small, I wouldn't take it lightly either. Certainly not in the same vein as litigation with the other, but I would just submit that I wouldn't take that lightly either. That's a little concerning to me as well.
What my analysis is limited to is making sure the committee understands what are the legal parameters by which you make a decision like this. And generally you have pretty broad discretion. You cannot find somebody, the low bidder, not a responsible bidder for an arbitrary or capricious reason. You really have to have a sound basis for doing so. But in general, just from the legal perspective, you have pretty wide discretion. But before members go to the merits of whether you decide to reject a bid or award a bid, my suggestion is that we hear from Lorraine Finnegan and her recommendation, because they also did an analysis that I think the committee will find relevant.
So let's, John, thank you. So let's let Lorraine do her presentation, then we can talk about it. And as we ask the questions from a legal standpoint, we can direct them towards John, some of the other areas towards Lorraine and SMMA. I want to have an open debate as we go through this, not looking to take a vote until, any and all questions are answered. So we're in no rush on this, all right? So Lorraine, if you want to.
Sure, I'm just gonna talk to you. I'm not gonna share my screen. So yes, good evening, everybody. How are you? So I think the good thing is we're here. It's an exciting place. We're ready to break ground. We're ready to get going. With that said, we do due diligence when the bids come in. We go through all 3 bids, look for anomalies. It is a contractual obligation of the designer to look at the alternates, make recommendations, as well as look at the bids and make recommendations. So Sean already showed you the difference in the deltas and the variances between the 3 bids. I just want to remind the committee that we did have 3 alternates in the project. We had they were all deductive alternates because you wanted to have this scope in the project, and we had put these in as bid protection. Since all the bids are under budget, I'm going to make an assumption, but I like a vote on it at the end, that you don't want to remove this scope from the project since we are under budget, but I want to bring that to your attention. The first was to eliminate the screening around the rooftop mechanical equipment. If you remember, we put that up there. The aid in the visual aspect as you come down to the project, you're not seeing this rooftop equipment, and also for the neighbors. I do see Doug's hand up, so I wasn't sure if Doug wanted to ask something. Okay, sorry, Doug. The second item was at the sort of, again, we don't have a back on this building, so where the playground is at the bus entrance, we originally had that as concrete block, ground face concrete block. And you'll remember when our estimates were coming in under budget, we decided to expand the brick to that area so we'd have a uniform building. We had done that early on for just, cost efficiency and staying on budget. So that was something. So right now the project has brick, and if we took that deductive alternate, it would change to block. And the third deductive alternate was a new skinned infield, fencing and backstop and benches at the softball field. So I don't know, Rich, if you want to deal with these things in order, because I will say that based on the pricing that was submitted in the bids, it does not change the difference, the ranking of the bids. So I don't know if you want to take a vote to not accept the alternates at this time or wait till the end of the meeting.
We'll wait till the end and do them all. So we'll hear everything, and then we'll do that at the end.
Okay, thank you. So as I said, the alternates do not change the ranking of the bidders. So we then undertook our bid review. In doing so, we found a few irregularities in 2 of the bids. John has already alluded to those, but I'll go through what our review determined. So while we were going through the bid review, which includes looking through all the documents that were provided, We work with the OPM and pull the Dchem file, go through the Dchem file for all the bidders, for the low bidder, I should say, the apparent low bidder, and make sure that it is in line with what we had seen at the pre-qualification stage. During that time frame, it was made aware through the town that there were omissions made in the Dchem update statement. The update statement is a document that Dchem requires every contractor to submit with their bid. And the key important factor is that it must be updated from the time they submit their application to Dchem. It must include any updates, I should say, from the time they submitted their application to Dchem for a certificate renewal until the time of bid. What that provides us with for reviewing is, where they stand on public projects, what projects are finished. If any projects are running late, we'll see that in the completion dates. It provides the public project record so we can look back at their projects. It shows their references. It lists any terminations, legal proceedings that are underway, any administrative violations. We typically consider those sort of OSHA violations, and gives us an understanding of where the contractor stands at as of the day of the bid. So that is why it is a requirement of the contract to submit that with the bid. So we did go through that, through the information that was provided. We looked back at the instructions on the update statement to make sure we were taking into consideration the directions that the contractors are given. So in doing so, I'll read a couple of excerpts from the update statement because I think it's important background. The update statement clearly says this form must be completed and submitted by all prime and general contractors bidding on projects pursuant to Mass General Law 149 and 149A. You must give complete and accurate answers to all questions and provide all the information requested. And then in capital for emphasis, making a materially false statement in this update statement is grounds for rejecting your bid and for debarring you from all public contracting. And this update statement must include all requested information that was not previously reported on the application used for your firm's most recently issued prime general contractor certificate of eligibility. The update statement must cover the entire period since the date of your application. Again, emphasis added, not since the date of your certification. So that is a key factor. The information that was submitted on the current lawsuits, three of them do fall within that window from when CTA submitted its application on October 20th until we received our bid on February 24th. So it is our opinion that those cases should have been listed on the update statement. In addition to that, we did look at 810 CMR. There are slight differences between them, but 810 CMR, which is about the qualifications of contractors, under 805, correction of update statements, goes through matters of form. And again, this talks about how the contractor may, through the awarding authority, be allowed to make corrections to their update statement. So that's important to understand. However, it makes a distinction that the contractor shall not be allowed to make corrections in the event of material errors or omissions filed in the update statement with their bid. So while a contractor can make changes to their update statement if they noticed an error, a scrivener's error or something, it cannot be a material change. So that is where the rubber starts to hit the road for us as to whether or not this is defined as a material change. And I think, as we approach it as architects, looking at the instructions to bidders and 810 CMR, with what John has told you, if this is a material change, we cannot recommend CTA as the lowest eligible bidder. So moving on to Brate. Brate included a bid bond for the town of Easton, as you heard. The OPM did reach out to the Attorney General's office looking for clarification on this. We did not receive clarification back from the Attorney General. However, again, in talking with John and his team, submitting the incorrect bid bond, Brate did provide the bid bond within a day, and it had been post-dated on the 16th. So through legal counsel, this is being determined as a scrivener's error and allows the awarding authority the jurisdiction. In any event, as John said, the awarding authority has the jurisdiction to make the final decision. It is not the architect's final decision. We are not signing the contract. It is not the OPM's final decision, but we wanted to provide you with the information that we reviewed the bids and what we found. For J&J Construction, we found no irregularities in the bid they submitted. That is our review of the bids.
Lorraine, thanks. Let me just do a quick little recap. So CTA is low bid on recommendation through legal counsel. They determined, or at least their opinion, is that the bid actually had material omissions as part of the bid, and that is grounds to not accept that bid. Our number 2 bidder also had an issue with the bid, and through legal counsel's opinion, and also with CMA, SMMA, that it's determined that that was not a material omission, but more of a Scribner or clerical error, and it was corrected within 24 hours. Our number 3 bid came through with no errors found in the bid process. And the material omission with the low bid CTA is several pending legal cases that they omitted. So with that, want to open it up for questions. Certainly there may be some questions from a legal perspective, maybe some questions from the contractors themselves. So please, if anyone has any questions, feel free to voice them.
Mr. Chairman, this question's for Attorney Clifford. Can CTA come back at us for any ramifications on this?
So the question for the committee is whether or not CTA is the low bidder, is the responsible bidder under the law. And a material omission like this gives the committee the discretion to determine that they are not a responsible bidder and allows you to move on to one of the next lower bidders. They can file a protest if we award this to another bidder. They could certainly litigate it. One of the things I think they teach you on the second day of law school is never to guarantee that someone's not going to sue you or bring an action. So it's certainly possible, but I think the material omissions, and I share SMMA's opinion on this, I think we're on pretty firm ground of defending a decision if you determine that that material omission would give you grounds to just decide that they were not a responsible bidder and move on to one of the other bidders.
Thank you very much.
May I ask a question?
Absolutely, Doug.
Okay, Attorney Clifford, so I understand what you're saying about them, this being a material omission. I guess my question, and it may not be relevant or necessary to know, but these lawsuits, I was trying to scan the materials, but I haven't had much time to read since they came in. What was the nature of these lawsuits? Are they active? Are they settled? Was CTA found responsible? I'm just curious the nature of what this, to me, that's something I would want to understand. I understand that it's material that they didn't include it regardless of what the lawsuits were regarding, right? So I understand that point. I'm just curious if there's relevance to knowing that additional information.
As part of their review process, I'd actually defer to PMA because they actually researched that as part of their due diligence to do it. So I don't know if Sean or even Lorraine wanted to answer those questions.
So I think just as a general, so Doug, so you understand what happens is basically mid-October, CTA refiled for the Dchem certification. And the update statement requires that any findings after October 22nd include any filings, any legal suits that happen after that, because anything prior to that, they have to submit to Dchem. So if Dchem finds issues with that, Dchem is going to deem them eligible to bid or not. So if they find something major in there, the idea is that the onus is on Dchem to say, yes, you're a Dchem certified contractor. after the 20th of October, when they submit that, Dchem is no longer looking at their legal filing. So that's where the requirement starts for them to update their Dchem. That's why it's called a Dchem update statement. And you provide any district with information that happened after that date, which for them would be October 20th. So the cases after that, I don't know. I think they're still pending. They're so recent that it would be my assumption that they're all still pending. But the ones that would have filed are ones that they would have been served on. Through our research, we found 2 that they hadn't been served on yet, so they didn't even know about them, so they weren't required to file those. But the nature of them, to us, was less important than the fact that they didn't include them in their update statement, and that was a requirement of the bid. And that's when we turn it over to the legal team to say, hey, what does this mean, and does it matter if it's a small lawsuit or something like that? And in the memo that CTA sent back to us, if you look at our letter and the response, I believe CTA does spell out what those cases are and in some detail, and tries to explain, I guess, why some of them weren't included, or if they were included, or in that. So we go through, and it's more of a concern of, if it wasn't included, is that a material omission? And if it is a material omission, can you accept the bid? And that's where we take off our hats and realize that we are not attorneys. We do not give legal advice, and we stop our legal research, which is basically going on the internet and looking into cases to the best of our ability. And we call on the experts, and we call on the town council, and turn those over to them, because they're the experts in that field, and they're the people that we rely on to make those determinations.
Going back to Lorraine's presentation, had they listed those on the supplemental statement, they could have submitted material explaining, providing the committee information as to why they were or not possibly relevant or determinative for your decision. But by not including them, that's what really creates an issue.
Does anyone else have any questions? So John, I got one. So, we brought up the question about litigation on behalf of CTA. If the committee were to go down the road of saying that they're not a responsible bidder and move to number 2. Mm-hmm. Conversely, if the committee went down the road and where there's been opinion that there is a material omission from the bid on CTA, if the committee were to go down the road of accepting that bid, even knowing that there was material omission, what legal standing would the number 2 and number 3 bidder have with the committee knowingly accepting a bid from someone who had material omissions?
The law has evolved in this area. It used to be, for something like a material omission of this nature, you were precluded from awarding it. But recent case law basically indicates that you still have discretion, even if you've identified a material omission. You still have the discretion to determine that CTA would in fact be a responsible bidder, and you could award it. So the fact that there's such broad discretion given to the committee under the law, it means that a challenge by the number 2 bidder has less likelihood of success. That doesn't mean that they wouldn't file things and they wouldn't challenge it. Obviously, there's a lot of money at stake, so it's kind of the same thing. We can never guarantee or preclude the likelihood or possibility of litigation.
Any other questions? So I want to voice at least my opinion here. Part of this whole project is trying to choose partners that are in the best interest of the project, the town, and the townspeople. So far, with SMMA and PMA, the partnership seems to be going very, very well. It's coming from someone who sat on the committee for the first school project, and not saying that wasn't successful and that it didn't go well. But looking at the partnership so far, I've seen a market improvement over what we saw in that first project. Me personally, when a company, intentionally doesn't put information in that they were legally required to do, it certainly questions or brings up questions in my mind of the integrity in that company. And that, really concerns me from a personal standpoint. If they're omitting that information, the question is why. And if it was a single case, maybe they missed it, but it's more than a single case. So they knowingly didn't include that information. And for me, that's troubling to try to start a partnership knowing that the first interaction wasn't a good interaction. So that's just my personal opinion.
Mr. Chairman, do we have to vote on this?
So we do. This is not a vote that we should take lightly. It's a very important vote. Probably one of the three most important votes that we'll have through this whole project. So that's why we wanted to have Attorney Clifford on here, have everyone on if there are any questions at all, this is the time to bring them up. So Doug, I saw your hand.
Yeah, real quick for Lorraine and Sean, based on your experience in the industry and with other projects, have you experienced something like this before? And what risk is there for the project, for timeline, for those kinds of things? I understand no one's got a crystal ball on whether if we chose not to accept or determine CTA as a responsible bidder, that they might sue or might not, right? To Attorney Clifford's point, but I'm just wondering about what risk we take going forward. And I understand the risk going the other way as well, if we were to select them.
I luckily have not had to deal with bid protests on any of my particular projects. PMA has. We're dealing with one for Dennis Yarmouth right now, but that's going to be heard by the AG's office. Lorraine, did you have a recent injunction or filing? Is that relevant to this one, or is that completely different?
Yeah, it's not relevant to this. It's an abutters injunction filing. But what I would say, Doug, is that we need to look at this project for the long term. And if lawsuits are going to come, if anything I dealt with recently on a recent project, if lawsuits are going to come, they're going to come. But this is a project that is going to go on for a couple of years. It's going to be a stellar building for the town of Rockland. And that's the focus that you need to keep ahead of you as you make a determination.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Jared.
I just wanted to echo your sentiments as well as Lorraine's. This is an important decision, and having those omissions by the lowest bidder for me personally is concerning. And to what end, I think, Lorraine, you just hit the nail on the head. There's potential for any issues. I mean, Rich and I know from the previous project, things are going to come up. We hope they don't, but there's a chance they would. As it relates to this bid, I'm concerned that things are out there and that things exist that I'm not equipped to interpret or read into, to be quite frank, but the fact that they're there, and if I'm correct, it was omitted from a Dchem submission. So they did not even alert the state. I mean, that's a state agency that manages every building in the Commonwealth, just about. So that's a big omission to a pretty big agency. To that end, I think we need to consider what is in the best interest of the town, the best interest of this project. And if a company, I would have to imagine, is aware of what they need to provide to Dchem, isn't able to do that, and to echo your sentiment, Rich, some of the issues that did exist on the previous project, my personal feeling would be to not accept that bidder per se, and move to the next one.
Rich, could I just clarify something for Jared?
Absolutely.
Okay, so just so you understand, the DCAM update statement is not that they've omitted something to DCAM. We're not looking at what they actually submitted to DCAM. This is after you make your submission to DCAM, any bid or any proposal that you send to a town, whether it's for pre-qualification or for a bid, you must submit to the district anything after DCAM. So that means they submitted a certain thing to DCAM. DCAM reviews that, but that's and this one was October 20th. So DCAM should have everything before October 20th. They issued them a DCAM certification, which says you're a certified contractor. Anything that's happened post October 20th, they need to submit to the district and to us to review. So it's not, and in this particular case, it's not that they missed submitting something to DCAM. It's that they missed submitting a DCAM update statement, which is updating, which has happened from DCAM to today's date.
Okay.
I wanted to make sure everyone was clear on that.
Thank you. Yeah, and I appreciate
Sean,
you clarifying the timeline. Thank you.
But Sean, that's a requirement through DCAM, right? If something happened, they have to update that. Correct?
So they will my understanding is they will update DCAM with that information on their next on the next time they go for certification, which I believe is once a year. They submit 3 months before, but yes, they will have to send all of that to DCAM at some point. But DCAM it's not a continuous review process for them. So DCAM certifies them, and then the update, and the reason they're supposed to do this is because DCAM doesn't look at that information. Anything that happens after they've been certified, that's where that requirement comes in, and that's why it's important. So we know any legal proceedings that have happened after DCAM's already reviewed their legal proceedings.
Okay.
Rich, can I make
Anyone
one?
else?
Yep.
Doug? Yep.
Thanks. Couple things. One is I want to echo what you said earlier, which is that, based on my experience as well, determining if a contractor is responsible is the most important thing, without a doubt. I know you already said that and others did, and that's why it's, written into the law. And to me, I've looked at this carefully and I've given this a lot of thought. And to me, I think it's pretty clear cut because we have town council's clear opinion that CTA's failure to include those items is a material omission. And I know for a fact that our owner's project manager, PMA, has given input into our architects' advice, and our architects are clearly putting on the record that they cannot recommend CTA as a responsible bidder because of that. And so to me, it's that is very clear. And when the time comes, I'm happy to make a motion to do that. But I think it's a pretty clear choice.
And I do want to add to Doug's comments. One of the things in this process is we are all lay people as the committee. We do have the benefit of having some individuals on this committee who have a background, particularly Mark and Tim. But at the end of the day, we're all lay people. And from day one, it was important, to get the right project manager, get the right architect, and get the right professionals in. And even in this, we took the additional step of bringing in town council because everyone on this committee is our lay people. And to Doug's point, when we look at the professionals that we brought in, they've made it pretty clear, in their opinion. As we go to make motions going forward, I would strongly suggest listening to the opinions of the professionals that we put in place.
Mr. Chairman, is this one vote or two?
This will be, it's two.
I'm going to recommend that the first vote be whether to determine that CTA is or is not a responsible bidder. And if they are a responsible bidder, then you would be awarding them the contract. If you determine they are not a responsible bidder, then you would have a vote on moving on to the next low bidder. That would be a second vote.
Rich, can I make that motion?
Yeah. So we got a motion by Doug.
I will second.
I'll second.
Let me say it first. So I would say that I'll make a motion that we accept town council's opinion that CTA's failure to include the update statements constitutes material omission. And further, I would move to accept our architect's recommendation that we not accept CTA as a responsible bidder.
I second that.
So I got a motion and a second. We'll look to take a roll call vote. Chris Bernica,
Yes.
Doug Lapp,
Yes.
Julie Schaefer. Is Julie still with us? Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Yes.
There you go. Okay. Jill Maroney,
Yes.
Ashley Cutter,
Yes.
Christine Flaherty,
Yes.
Jared Valenzola,
Yes.
Alan Cron,
Yes.
Michelle Shifley,
Yes.
Emily Davidson,
Yes.
Doug Wallow,
Yes.
Tim Haynes,
Yes.
Mark Shum.
Yes.
I think that's everyone. I believe I got everyone. And then myself, yes.
I'm here too. Danielle Biggins, yes.
Oh, Danielle, I'm sorry I missed you. All right, so we got Danielle as well. Sorry about that. All right, so we made the motion to find CTA as a not a responsible bidder, and now we need to have a motion to our number 2 bidder if we are inclined to accept them.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to accept Bright Builders.
So I get a motion. Oh, so yeah, Lorraine.
I think before you do that, you should have discussion, equal discussion on the omission and the error in the bid bond.
With the bid bond, that's
I
all
think we
right.
need to have that discussion.
Okay, that's a good. So, so Brick Builders did have an omission in their bid. They confused the bid bond and actually sent the Easton bid bond as part of the package for the Rockland project. It was identified quickly and it was corrected. And in the with legal counsel's opinion that was not construed as a material omission, but more of a Scribner's error or a clerical error. So if there's any questions, comments on that?
Mr. Chairman, just for posterity, I'll reiterate what I had said initially. I don't like that as an error. It's a large project, and that is a fairly big detail that was, get it, mistakes happen. I've certainly made plenty of them, and you all know that. But I think to have made a mistake on that level is fairly large, and I'll just submit those comments and my thoughts on that matter for now. But I think that is an unfortunate mistake to have been made, to have confused both of those. And again, on a project this large with the attention to detail being necessary, I would submit that as my comments.
Rich, can I make one comment?
John? Yeah.
Oh, I just wanted to let Jared know we did discuss this when Bright resubmitted their bid. They did provide an explanation, and that is the town of Easton's project bid the day before on Project Dog, and this is an electronic bidding process, which means that the way it works is you click a file on your computer, hit send, and it uploads it to the website. So their explanation was that they had 2 bids due within 24 hours of each other. They clicked the wrong file and uploaded the wrong file. So I don't know that it necessarily changes your comments, but I just wanted for the committee and for the benefit of everyone else to know what Bright's response was as to why they submitted an incorrect bond.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Sean. In that, like I said, I understand mistakes happen. I've done the same, over the years in that respect. And I accept it. Is it a disqualifier for me? I might spell personally, probably not, but I think it should be noted that is still nevertheless it was a mistake, and it was a pretty big one, at least in my opinion, but not for me personally, not enough to disqualify.
Rich, can I make a comment?
Yes, Doug.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm personally not concerned about this. I don't think it's a big deal at all. I think the main point is they did submit a bid bond. If they didn't submit one at all, I think that would be very problematic. But they did document that they did have a bid bond that was, executed and witnessed and signed at the appropriate time. They literally just was a clerical error, and those are, very clear case law that's, an informality that towns can have discretion to overlook, and it's not as uncommon, or it's not as common as you'd think. So I'm not concerned about it, and I'm very comfortable proceeding with Brate.
Anyone else with any comments?
Yeah.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Emily.
Thank you. It's more towards Mark on the committee. Obviously, he looked over the plans and the bids in detail, especially he knows what he's talking about compared to me. And I was just seeing if he had any feedback compared to the last two bidders. Mark, you're on mute.
I have no comment.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'm happy with Brave Builders. Everyone makes errors and mistakes. This is going to be a good project for the town moving forward, and I think that's what we have to do today is move forward. So,
Did you ask me a question? Because I didn't hear that question. If you asked me a question, tell me.
Yeah, I was asking if you noticed, like, you reviewed the plans in more detail from the last two bidders. I was seeing if you had any, like, if you were leaning towards one over the other, or something stood out to you on any of the plans or the bids that could kind of help us make our decision as well.
Let me apologize. I'm sorry I didn't hear that.
That's okay.
I'm working off my phone. Unfortunately, my computer wasn't working well. As far as the drawings and specifications, I know them pretty well. I reviewed them really well. They're just drawings and specifications. I don't know how each general contractor looked at the drawings and specifications individually. I have no indication of who looked at them more thoroughly. I hope I'm answering your question. I think that's what you're asking me. Did Brate look at the drawings more closely than CTA? I don't know any of that at all. Is that your question?
Yeah, just kind of like your professional opinion too, if you noticed anything or one stood out more.
No, again, I don't know what they do, their own takeoff and their own bidding process. And I don't know how they come up with their own numbers. I mean, actually, I can see the breakdowns, but as far as who looked at it more clearly and who spent more time and who I thought would be stronger, it's really difficult for me to tell.
Okay.
Doug Wallow? Yep.
Yeah, can I just ask Attorney Clifford? I know Doug Lapp mentioned this, but we were so focused on the CTA one, I've kind of forgotten the language that you used around what we could or couldn't do here. Like, so a town could find this scrivener's error material, or it has discretion to ignore it if it chooses. Can you remind me what language you used around that?
It's actually a slightly different analysis, but basically it's been held where there's an obvious clerical error. It's not a matter that requires you to reject the bid. So again, you're given broad discretion. The material omission goes to basically the quantity of what they did. You could reject the Brate Builders bid based on the fact that they missed a technical requirement of the bid. So you have that discretion. It really does come down to, it's really up to the committee at that point. But, you have the ability to do it. But I think Sean's analysis was probably relevant. What caused or what could have, was it a reasonable explanation as to how that happened? And I think it was.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments before we?
I'll make a quick comment, which is, if you don't mind, a contractor who's facing 7 lawsuits in essentially a relatively short period of time would probably not have made the cut for the invitation to bid and getting qualified originally. had the information been known. But I would think a clerical error, unfortunate as it is, their qualifications would still stand on, on their history, and it would not be something I would throw somebody out over. But it would scare me very much that somebody couldn't resolve matters, whether it's payments to vendors or people unhappy with their work that's not getting resolved, or whatever the case happens to be. But somebody who couldn't resolve issues before it got to court with so many issues to be is, it's a good reason for us to have rejected it, but a clerical error, no.
Anyone else?
I just want to be clear, Rich. I am not advocating rejection by any means, just pointing it out. That's all. Yeah, that's all. I mean, I think you have a motion on the table, I think, and I'll be happy to second that motion to award to Brave Builders.
So the suggested motion would be to name Brave Builders as the lowest responsible bidder.
Correct.
So ask for a motion for that motion.
I make a motion to that motion.
And I second the updated motion.
So you have a motion and a second. Take a roll call. Chris Benica.
Yes.
Doug Lapp.
Yes.
Julie Schaefer.
Yes.
Jill Maroney.
Yes.
Ashley Cutter.
Yes.
Christine Flaherty.
Yes.
Jared Valenzola.
Yes.
Alan Cron.
Yes.
Michelle Shifley.
Yes.
Emily Davidson.
Yes.
Doug Wallow.
Yes.
Tim Haynes.
Yes.
Mark Shawn.
Yes.
Danielle Biggins.
Yes.
And myself. That's unanimous. So the exciting part is we've got a GC. What's really exciting is it is $10+ million under budget. And if everyone remembers, when John Ellard, the town treasurer, looked to bond the first part of this project, the interest rate was at historically low levels. So before we even break ground, the real exciting part to this is, while this is a significant investment by the townspeople, I think from the day that we started this project, the goal of this committee and this project was to do the best for the town. And I think so far we've done a very good job of getting the architect on board and designing, what looks to be one hell of a school. Our OPM, who has helped us through this, our town council, the members of this board, and now as we move forward, while this project's still going to be significant in cost, we're already seeing some of the efforts of the labor and also some timing. But we're going to be able to build a tremendous school and get great value for the townspeople and for the kids. So with that, I'm extremely excited.
Rich, you do have one more vote that I would need tonight, and that is a vote to not accept the deduct alternates so that scope remains in the project, please.
Correct. Yeah. So I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
To
Keep the alternates. I motion.
Keep it. Yeah. Yep. So I got the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I get a second. We'll take that vote. Chris Bernica.
Yes.
Doug Lapp.
Yes.
Julie Schaefer.
Yes.
Jill Maroney.
Yes.
Ashley Cutter.
Yes.
Christine Flaherty.
Yes.
Jared Valenzola.
Yes.
Alan Cron.
Yes.
Michelle Shifley.
Yes.
Emily Davidson.
Yes.
Doug Wallow.
yes.
Tim Haynes.
Yes.
Mark Shawn.
Yes.
Danielle Biggins.
Yes.
And myself. That's a vote. All right, thank you, everyone.
So
We will
that was a
be,
vote. That was a vote to not accept any of the alternates. Is that correct?
That's the way we need it, not a vote not to take.
No,
Not to take.
No, to take. I wanted to take.
No, we're not going to remove that scope from the project.
So I think you
Hold
might.
on.
Because they're
Oh, then did we make the
They're
wrong? Hold on.
They're deduct alternates.
It
We
was
would
the
take that out of
deduct
the
alternate.
The request from Lorraine was to not include the alternates, and I think people were voting on that motion, but I think the motion might have been made the opposite way. So just for clarity, there's deduct alternates included in this. The reason they're in there is to get you under budget in case this came over. You're under budget now, and this has to do with like removing brick and replacing it with CMU and some other various small changes. So we are not recommending you take any of these alternates. To keep the project as it is, but I'd have to re-roll the tape, but I believe the motion was to keep the alternates, which actually doesn't really mean anything. So as a point of clarification, I think you should clarify that whether you intend to include alternates 1, 2, and 3, or you intend to not include alternates 1, 2, and 3. And the recommendation from SMMA is to not include alternates 1, 2, and 3.
Because to be clear, Sean, the alternates are actually downgrades.
Correct.
None of the work at the softball field would happen if you accept.
Right. So, and I think your assessment, Sean, is correct. That confused me for a moment, even though I voted yes in the moment.
And I actually missed. So I missed the. All right.
I will make that.
The motion was to move what Lorraine said.
No, it wasn't. The motion that Mark made was to not do the alternates.
No, I didn't motion that. The GCs carried the alternates, correct?
No, the alternates are deductive alternates, so it would further lower the bid price, but it would remove scope from the project.
Gotcha.
So none of the work at the softball field would occur.
We don't want to do a deduct, correct?
Correct. Do not.
Yeah, that's
Should we
why
do
we
a
don't want.
should we do a clean motion and vote to make sure we got this right?
Yes.
And Lorraine or Sean, can you tell us what that motion needs to be?
Do not accept the deductive alternates.
I will make that
move to
motion.
not accept the deductive alternates.
1, 2, and 3.
I'll second.
I get a motion in a second. So let's redo this. So Chris Benica.
Yes.
Doug Lapp.
Yes.
Julie Schaefer.
Yes.
Jill Maroney.
Yes.
Ashley Cutter.
Yes.
Christine Flaherty.
Yes.
Jared Valenzola.
Yes.
Alan Cron.
Yes.
Michelle Shifley.
Yes.
Emily Davidson.
Yes.
Doug Wallow.
Yes.
Tim Haynes.
Yes.
Mark Schaum.
Yes.
Danielle Biggins.
Yes.
And myself. All right. So that is, we're keeping everything. We're getting the softball field done. We're keeping the brick, doing all that. And still over $10 million under the initial budget. So that's phenomenal. All right. As far as the next meeting, do we even know at this point when the next one would be?
Rich, I also have a question.
What was that?
Rich?
Yes.
Sorry, I have a question regarding the groundbreaking. Is that still scheduled for March 29th?
We have a groundbreaking scheduled. It was sometime in that date, but we're going to have to, now that you've selected the lowest responsible bidder, we're going to talk to them. We're going to get them under contract. We have some paperwork to do. And there is no change to the contract dates right now. There is a little bit of a delay in the award, and assuming that they're ready to go, I don't anticipate any major change. But we'll figure out with them this week, and we'll let Rich know when we can reach out to the committee. The MSBA will also ask about a groundbreaking, but with COVID, where it's kind of one of those weird times whether or not you're going to have a public official groundbreaking, or if you do it later on, or how you want to deal with that. So I think it's certainly something you can discuss now. You should discuss as a town whether or not it makes sense to have if you can do a COVID friendly groundbreaking, or if you're going to forego it because of the current climate.
I think outside events are 100 people, right now.
Yes.
So if I recall the groundbreaking, Rich, from the middle school, high school project, I don't think we had 100 people there.
No, we didn't.
And March 29th would be before middle school kids are back to school. So you won't even have, I guess I'm just driving towards, there's plenty of space at that oval. You're not going to even have full schools at that point. So I would suggest as best as we can. I've been to plenty of events the last few weeks on behalf of the county that we have been spread out. I was at one in Brockton yesterday. So I think we can comfortably go forward with the amount of space we have with a groundbreaking ceremony.
Anywhere that Jerry can go get his picture taken, he's up for it.
I do not need my picture taken, Mr. Penny. It's especially in Rockland anyway. If it were the other 26 communities that need to get to know me more, maybe. No, I think it would be a great moment for the community, and all kidding aside, considering the accomplishments we've already turned in, being under budget, plus the lower bonding rate, also returning money to the taxpayers, and this also being a trying year for everyone, especially for students and faculty within RPS. I think it could be a very good, just a nice morale boost and something good for the community to do and demonstrate that we're coming back to some semblance of normalcy and that this project is still full steam ahead.
Anyone else? What your thoughts are on a public event for the groundbreaking?
I agree with Jared. I think it'd be good for the community to see something positive. And where it's outdoors and we can have up to 100 people, why not give the community that pleasure, if you will, to see it going forward.
And Rich, WRPS will cover it. We'll film that so we have it on record.
That would be very nice.
I agree. I think it's a great celebration.
So yeah, so let's plan on that. So Doug, Sean, as you talk with the GC, see if that date is still a viable date. Obviously, the bid's coming a little later than what we anticipated, so I don't know how that impacts them as far as being ready, on that date. But if you want to get back and if we can tie that date, and if we can't, then we can look to do it, on the date that they are able to start.
So just as a practicality, and Lorraine could probably chime in this, a lot of the times you start the work and then have a ceremonial groundbreaking sometime within, the first day. We're typically not there the first day they put a shovel in the ground, or we may be there before they put a big shovel. You put an excavator behind you, they build a little sand pit to do your ceremonial groundbreaking. This is purely ceremonial, and we don't hold up construction schedules typically, or wait for a town and say we're not going to start digging and we're not going to start working until we're ready to go. So it's a great event for the town. It's a great event for the people, but we should not be driving a construction schedule based on this. It should be just what it is, a ceremonial groundbreaking, and we'll talk to Brait. They've done it before. Get something set up in a safe area away from the real construction pits and keep everyone outside of it, but with enough with enough construction vibe that makes it feel like a real event. And we've done it before. They're awesome. It's great to have. The MSBA typically sends someone out, the town comes out, and it's really exciting for the town. So I think it's a good decision to try to do it. And I think you're right. We can do it safely, and there's enough room there. We can all spread out, and it'll be a good thing.
Yeah, when we did it for the high school, middle school, it was before the ground. It was before the ground was broken. We had an excavator there. We had, I think our senator and rep was there, the MSBA. It was just a ceremony.
Now I do remember, Rich, not to interrupt you, this is something I would like. We did get custom shovels, if you recall. And I still have mine.
Stop with the shovels. Stop.
So that I will pay out of pocket, but I would like a shovel.
Stop.
Can I add in, we probably should connect with Mr. Phelps and make sure that he and his family can be there since it's named with them.
That's
good idea, Jill.
Yeah, I know he has trouble getting on these meetings sometimes, but I will reach out to him. And once you guys give me a date to see where he is and that sort of thing.
Okay.
I just think we need to make sure we don't go anywhere after April 5th, because it's going to be a lot of traffic going to Memorial Park, because we're reopening. So I think we got to try to make it that week before. That's just my concern.
Okay.
All right. So Sean, as soon as you have some details, if we can make it, the week of the 29th, then we'll certainly do that. If not, then we can look to still do it at some point in time, but we'll do it at a time that makes sense.
Is there a consensus time we should try to target for? I know we have a lot of people on this committee, and it's going to be hard to schedule around everyone's schedule. Is there a better time for people? Is there a worse time for people? Do we have a sense of what's open?
I think maybe the only suggestion I'd make, Sean, dovetailing Michelle, is either we do it middle of the day while school is in session, or we do it after everyone's out. Thankfully, we spring ahead this weekend, so we will have more daylight as time goes on. But that would just be my suggestion. I have flexibility.
Actually, Jared,
I can't speak for everyone else.
Jared, do you remember? Did we do it on a Saturday?
I know the ribbon cuttings were. I can't remember, to be honest with you, Rich. It may have been a Saturday.
I'm thinking
though.
It was a Saturday.
The ribbon cuttings definitely were.
Yeah.
But you're right. Now, it's a long time ago when you think about it. I think it may have been, and that's actually not the worst idea. That completely negates the concern.
And
with
I think that was part of the reason was because it was an active school. It was the high school,
Right.
middle school, whatever. And Sean, I don't know if that works or whatever, but I actually think that we did it on a Saturday, to be honest with you.
I think a Saturday
we
is
were
probably
running
the
into
best
the same
idea.
issues.
I'm not sure if the MSBA attends them on a Saturday. I've not
it-
seen that.
Yeah. And the other thing is would you get more than 100 people on a Saturday? Is there a concern there, or do you think you'd still be within that number?
Well, I think
Proud.
I would think, not to interrupt, but I would think if we're planning it, it would be an event that doesn't get publicized, for lack of a better term, I guess. I know that starts to get awkward, but you're right. I mean, we have the capacity limit outdoors. That would be my thinking, but we would want it to be publicized as well. So that's a good point, Sean. I don't know if we did it on a Saturday, would we run the risk of getting 100 people, more than 100 there? And then I guess on the other side is, what do you qualify as being the location of the event? If we're at an open field, what's the capacity limit of an open field, right? So, and who's gonna bust it? I guess is my thinking. But I'm flexible for whatever. But as you're saying it, Rich, I think you're right. I think we did everything on a Saturday, including the ribbon cutting. I know the ribbon cuttings were on Saturdays, and MSBA back then did come. That said, we were one of the first projects completed under the new model, so they were probably flexible to anything at that point. But I would be hopeful that they could be there whatever day the community chose to do it.
I would think a Saturday might be difficult for if any families might want to see where their, kids are going to be going to school, because Saturdays, especially starting in the spring, are going to be really busy with soccer and kids sports. Personally, I think like after school, like 4 o'clock, once kids are all dismissed and gone from the premise of the building, is a really good time. That's just personal.
And Rich, I was just going to suggest piggybacking on Danielle's comment. I mean, if people generally have a Thursday at 4 o'clock set aside for these meetings, maybe a Thursday at 4 makes sense. Just a thought. Doesn't matter to me. I'm totally flexible.
Mr. Chairman, we just have to remember, coming up that week is the first week of April.
It's football.
And we have holidays weekend, and then the kids come back K through 4 that Monday. So I think during the weekday would be better.
Okay. Who would have thought that the most difficult decision was when we were going to do a groundbreaking? Voting the GC for a huge project was easier than this. I guess, Sean, we're talking about, let's find out when they can start to do the groundbreaking, and then we can kind of do it. But I do think that, probably 4 o'clock in the afternoon is probably, a better time period. That way school's out. As far as the project, promoting it, I don't know if we want to do that. Again, because of the COVID, I do think that having RPS there to video it. I also do think that it may make sense to notify some strategic members of the media, and Alan, obviously the PR firm that we use, and get it out after that. Because my concern is the same thing: is if we really advertise this, do we end up, one of two things. One is we could be extremely disappointed and no one from the town shows up. Or we could end up with a very large crowd and then we're like, what do we do? So I think this may be an event where we kind of keep it more internally, be strategic in who we invite, but try to have the media present so at least we can then get it out. If that makes sense.
Mr. Chairman, can we make sure the selectmen, your counterparts on the selectmen, know about this as well?
I think we could do that.
Well, between this committee, Board of Selectmen, that's 30 people.
Exactly.
If you invite just the teachers and would be in the elementary school, you'd have 100 people.
MSB is probably another 5, depending who would show up.
We'll add up quickly.
I think
At our
Julie's
local,
recommendation is really nice to include the teachers. I don't know if that's been considered. And I totally understand the COVID restrictions and definitely respect that choice and maybe not promoting it. But there is a little piece of me that this was a town vote and a town project. And we did a lot of work to get the town on board to vote yes. And so there's a part of me that doesn't really think it should be quiet, like hushed. Like, honestly, I don't think probably a lot of people are going to come, but I think it would be nice to put it out there. So if people want to, they can. I mean, we asked everyone to come out and vote. So it would be nice to at least put it out there to say, this is happening. That's all.
Good choice, so.
That being said, we still have to follow all those public health guidance, whatever those are. And the only thing I was going to add, I liked the inclusion of teachers that Danielle just brought up, but maybe if we could identify a couple of students or even do some type of fun, I don't know, contest or something like that to give a couple of kids who will be future inhabitants of this building, once it opens, a chance to be a part of it as well. That would be, I think, really nice.
Maybe another option would be to maybe do like a live feed over like Facebook or something for the town people where you can't have so many people come.
That could be a good idea.
I mean, I will say I do fundamentally agree with Danielle. Will 100 people show up? 100 people didn't show up 12 years ago, and that was, pretty monumental for the town.
Yeah, that was a pretty good crowd there.
It was a great crowd. We had a phenomenal crowd, Rich. But I do agree with Danielle. I think she's right. I mean, we asked the full town to rally and frankly pay for this project, and they stepped up. So I think we put it out there, and if it starts to look like we're going to be over 100 people, I mean, I guess functionally speaking, there could be a way, maybe we rope off the 100-person section and the 101st person can watch from across the street or something. I don't know. I guess I'm just going to be optimistic that we didn't have 100 people the first time. So we may not the second time. And frankly, being at some of these other events, or even with the Bernicas at Mass, we're not getting the demand. People still aren't going out. People still aren't doing things. So I think, if we put it out there and, people can make the decision for themselves, whether they want to come or not. And, as Danielle said, the whole town stepped up for it. So I think it would be a precarious situation for us to be sort of making this more of a private event as well. So I think we put it out there and, adjust where we need to. We can be creative. We've been creative the last year, for crying out loud. This is one more thing that we can maybe show a little critical thinking and execute a nice event for the town and the taxpayers.
Okay. so I guess at this point, you know, we can, I think in general speaking is we're looking to do it, you know, in an afternoon after school gets out, that we may end up, you know, promoting it to some extent. Look to get local media and RPS there. But again, we don't know what the days are yet until we start to hear back from our OPM. And then once we get a better gauge, then we can kind of look to finalize this.
Can I acknowledge myself with my hand up?
Yes.
I think we should also include Parks Department. We don't work closely with them. I've been working closely with them. Maybe Howie, some of the departments should be involved. The veterans, they're right next to our site. They should all be involved, in my opinion. At least notified or invited. That's again, it's my opinion.
Certainly do that. All right. So with that, you know, we'll wait to hear back from Sean. As soon as I hear some things, I'll get out. I'll get out to everybody. But with that, if no more, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Get that motion. Do I have a second?
You have invoices to review quickly?
Oh, geez. Thanks, Sean. I forgot about that.
You don't, there's no vote required, so it should go
There is no
relatively
vote,
quick.
right.
So Mitch, if you can share your screen, if you just want to throw that invoice sheet up. The invoices are for January and February. We didn't have, I guess they were supposed to be at the last meeting, but it got pushed. So it just turns out that this meeting got pushed past the date where we got the invoices for February. So we included everything. So standard invoices, 2 months for PMA, 2 months for SMMA, and then one $36 charge for the media for a newspaper ad. So I don't know if there's any questions on this one.
I don't have any, no.
And then just one other thing I wanted to touch on, if it's okay, Rich, quickly.
Yeah.
I know Tim at the last meeting asked about the MSBA grant. So I didn't forget about you, Tim. So I did a quick calculation based on just the low bid at this point. You know, we didn't know which way we were going. So rather than rerun a bunch of numbers, we based on the low bid. And this comes with the extreme caveat that none of this is decided until the MSBA gives you their PFA bid amendment, in that in their board meetings, they do report that there's a potential grant variance that is basically, am I echoing for everybody or just for me? All right, there we go. There's a grant variance that they could reduce your grant by basically the cost savings times your reimbursement rate, for which this project is something like 67%. But we haven't seen that in practice. And I think the reason they put that out there is because if you do drop below the $333 a square foot, that savings would go right back to the MSBA, but we have not done that in this case. There's another caveat that there are some nuances here with depending on how much the site, actually the demo and abatement costs, that could affect the grant, but we don't have the breakdown from either the low bidder or the second builder. That being said, based on just a straight 3011 form and understanding that this could all change, your grant reduction looks like somewhere in the $200,000 range. So on a $13 million savings, you're in broad strokes, the MSBA will still contribute what they contribute as long as the abatement and the demo site, those costs are the same, and that your overall cost per square foot does not drop below their grant value. So there's still a lot of work to be done, but I didn't want to forget about you, Tim, and I want to make sure we addressed it. And I'm going to say it again, that's with the big caveat, none of this is final until we have the pricing in from the contractor and until the MSBA reviews and approves it as well.
Amazing. That's great.
All right. That's all I got, Rich.
All right. Thank you. All right. So I get a motion, and do I have a second?
Second.
Oh, yeah. All right. Chris Panica.
Yes.
Doug Lapp.
Yes.
Julie Schaefer. Julie, you're mute.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
Jill Maroney,
Yes.
Ashley Cutter,
Yes.
Christine Flaherty,
Yes.
Jared Valenzola,
Yes.
Alan Cron.
Yes.
Is Alan still here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh,
Yes.
sorry about that. Michelle,
Yes.
Emily Davidson,
Yes.
Doug Wallow,
Yes.
Tim Haynes,
Yes.
Mark Shum,
Yes.
Danielle Biggins,
Yes.
and myself. We are adjourned, and as soon as I get some info, I'll get it out to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.